My name is Nathan Carter, and I'm 26 years old. I work as a clerk at a small independent bookstore in Concord, New Hampshire, a city where mornings hum with the clatter of coffee shops opening along Main Street, their awnings dripping with dew. By midday, the air carries the earthy scent of fallen leaves from the Merrimack River's banks, and at night, streetlights cast a gentle glow, as if shielding the city's quiet charm. Concord isn't bustling or silent. It's just enough for someone like me to drift through without questioning the things I can't control. My life feels like a well-worn routine. Wake up, gulp coffee, shelve books, go home, eat a reheated meal and sleep. Each day mirrors the last, unremarkable, until a single moment turned everything upside down. I live with my parents in a creaky, two-story house on Concord's outskirts, its faded blue siding peeling like old skin, the oak floors groaning underfoot when autumn rains soak the city. This house has absorbed too many stories. My father's wild schemes for wealth, my mother's clipped arguments about bills I pretended not to hear. I don't love it for its looks but for its familiarity, even if that familiarity sometimes feels like a cage I've stopped trying to escape. The bookstore job isn't my passion, but it pays the bills. I organize shelves, ring up purchases, and plan author readings for locals who sip tea and browse poetry. My coworkers, mostly retirees with soft smiles and stories of their own, tease me as the bookish bachelor. I laugh it off, uninterested in romance. My life is complicated enough at home. My father, Samuel Carter, is 47, his dark hair streaked with gray, his hazel eyes always carrying a shadow of unfulfilled ambition. He's a dreamer who's never landed. In the late 2000s, he opened a bike shop that folded, then a catering service that went bust. His latest flop, a mobile app for local tours, tanked in 6 months. He blames everyone, the market, his partners, bad luck, never himself. I remember him slumped in our living room, a glass of gin in hand, muttering about needing one real shot to make it big. That shot never comes or he fumbles it. My mother, Lillian, is the opposite, methodical. A part-time paralegal at a law firm, her hands precise, her smile practiced for clients. She's warm to strangers but controls our finances with a grip so tight I once joked she could count coins in her sleep. She doesn't shout at my father, but her sighs when he pitches new ventures are heavy, making the air in our house feel like a storm about to break. I grew up in that tension, a family sharing a roof but little else. I don't whine about it. I've learned to tune out my father's complaints, my mother's sharp looks, the emptiness gnawing at me. I don't hate them. I just don't know how to connect. Maybe that's why I rarely thought of my grandparents, who live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, 60 miles away. It's a coastal town where time lingers, with salty air, cobblestone streets, and fishing boats swaying in the harbor. I visited as a kid, but those trips were stiff, awkward. My father avoids Portsmouth, claiming it's too far. My mother always has excuses, work, errands. I never press them on it, letting life roll on like a predictable novel. On weekends, I'd escape to a park by the river, sitting on a weathered bench with a dog-eared fantasy book from the bookstore's clearance bin. I don't have close friends, just coworkers I share an occasional ale with at a pub. They call me quiet. I call it keeping the peace. But that peace didn't last. One evening, as we ate dinner in silence, forks scraping plates, my father spoke, his voice bright with forced enthusiasm. Lillian and I have decided, we're inviting your grandmother to live with us. I stopped, a bite of pork stuck in my throat. Grandma Esther? Her face was a hazy memory. A soft voice, gentle hands from visits when I was 8 or 9. I looked at my mother, expecting clarity, but she gave a thin smile, the kind that hid something. It's good for her, she said, her tone smooth as glass. Your grandfather passed 3 years ago, and she's alone. Questions flooded me. Why now? Why Esther? Why did this feel off? But I nodded, swallowing my doubts as always. I didn't know this choice would unravel my world. In the weeks before Grandma Esther arrived, I buried myself in work, stacking books, helping patrons, planning a poetry night. The bookstore's regulars, elderly folks with weathered faces, shared stories of their youth, loves, and regrets. One man, Mr. Harold, gripped my arm, his eyes sharp. "Nathan, don't let life pass without living it true." His words stuck, echoing as I shelved novels. At home, the mood shifted. My father grew animated, talking about clearing the attic for Grandma's room, once a dusty storage space filled with old lamps and boxes. My mother scrubbed floors, but her tight jaw showed reluctance. I overheard her hiss to my father, "If she doesn't agree, don't look at me." Her words chilled me, though I didn't understand them. The weekend before Esther's arrival, I walked alone by the Merrimack, leaves crunching underfoot, the air sharp with fall. I stopped at a cafe, nursing a hot cider, and wondered about Grandma Esther. I vaguely recalled her reading to me, her voice soft, her eyes holding something unsaid. Would she fit in our tense home? I wasn't sure. The day she arrived, Concord was cloaked in mist. I stood on our porch, the damp air clinging to my jacket, watching the street. A gray taxi rolled up, and out stepped Grandma Esther, small and frail in a maroon coat, her white hair pinned neatly, a battered leather suitcase in hand. She seemed shrunken, time carving her into a delicate figure. My father rushed out, his smile wide but empty. "Mom, you made it," he said, too loud, like he was playing a part. My mother stood at the door, arms folded, her smile forced. I took her suitcase, heavy with mementos, a lifetime packed tight. "Hello, Nathan," she said, her voice soft, her blue eyes searching mine. "You're so tall now." I mumbled, "Hi, Grandma," avoiding her gaze, unsettled by her presence, like she carried a truth I wasn't ready to face. The first days with Grandma Esther were odd. Our house, already cramped, felt suffocating. Her attic room, hastily cleared, had cracked walls and a faint damp smell, despite her lavender sachets. She unpacked quietly. A few dresses, a yellowed photo of her and my grandfather, a wooden box she kept close. I didn't know how to approach her. Her slow steps, her trembling hands as she held a teacup, made me uneasy, like I was under scrutiny. She asked about my job, my life, Concord. My answers were clipped, and I'd escaped to the bookstore, claiming a shift. I wasn't rude, but her presence stirred something. Maybe fear of facing my own buried feelings. She cooked comforting meals, beef stew, sourdough bread, mint tea dishes my mother never touched. My mother, maintaining her polished front, barely hid her annoyance. "We eat light here, Esther," she said, her voice sharp-edged. Grandma nodded, smiled, and kept cooking, her patience like a quiet strength, as if she was used to being overlooked. My father played the dutiful son, but it was hollow. One night, as I read in the living room, I overheard him in the kitchen with my mother. "Give it a month, and it'll all fall into place," he said, his tone secretive, like when he planned his failed apps. A week in, I caught a cold after a rainy walk. I lay in bed, exhausted, while my mother left medicine on my desk with a curt note. My father didn't check on me, lost in his phone. Then came Grandma Esther's slow steps. She brought a bowl of chicken soup, steam curling up. "Eat, Nathan. It'll warm you," she said, leaving quietly. The soup's warmth, its rich flavor, hit me hard. For the first time in years I felt cared for. I started noticing her more. Sitting by the window, gazing at the street, her hands knitting or polishing a lamp. Her care in small tasks felt profound, like each held a story. My mother's sharp comments, "Esther, don't leave your scarf out," stung, but Grandma apologized, her eyes briefly dim. Guilt crept in, and I started small talk about Concord, Portsmouth. Her sincere replies drew me closer, and I realized I was beginning to care. But the house grew tense. My father fixated on a new venture, a boutique hotel for Concord's tourists, a gold mine. At dinner, he'd ramble about its downtown location, his eyes gleaming. "Just a little cash, Nathan, and we're golden." I nodded, knowing his plans always crumbled. My mother stayed silent, but her glances at Grandma were cold, calculating. Grandma grew quieter, her hands clasped tightly by the window. I wanted to ask if she was okay, but hesitated, afraid of what I'd uncover. One night, reading a sci-fi novel, I overheard my parents in the dining room. "Her house in Portsmouth is just sitting there," my father said, urgent. "Sell it, Mom, and you'll be set. I'll use the money for the hotel. Give you a share." I froze. That house was her life with my grandfather, her heart. I crept to the hall, listening. Grandma's voice was soft but firm. "Samuel, it's our home. It's all I have of him." My father sighed, sharp. "Memories don't pay, Mom. You're old, let it go. I'm helping you, helping us." My mother chimed in. "He's right, Esther. We're caring for you. Sell it. It's smart." My fists clenched. They didn't care, they wanted her money. I stayed silent, hating myself for it. Days later, Grandma agreed. I don't know what they said, but one morning, she sat at the table, signing papers, her hands trembling, her eyes vacant. My father beamed, patting her shoulder. "You did right, Mom. I'll make you proud." I turned away, anger and helplessness churning. The Portsmouth house sold for a sum I never knew. My father called it transformative, but soon he was griping about costs. The hotel stayed a dream. New gin bottles appeared. A fancy sound system blared in the living room, and creditors called. Grandma faded into the shadows. My mother stopped setting her a place at dinner, saying, "Eat upstairs, Esther. It's tight here." My father barely spoke to her unless he needed something. When Grandma spilled tea, my mother snapped, "Be careful, Esther. This isn't a bed and breakfast." Grandma cleaned it quietly, apologizing. I watched, chest tight, but said nothing, my silence a weight. The air in our Concord house grew heavier, like a storm waiting to break. My father, Samuel, became consumed with his boutique hotel idea, sketching plans on napkins, his voice loud with false confidence. "This is it, Nathan," he'd say at dinner, eyes wild. "A hotel by the State House, tourists will flock. Just need startup funds." I nodded, my stomach twisting, knowing his ventures always ended in debt. My mother, Lillian, stayed quiet, her eyes flicking to Grandma Esther, sharp and cold. Grandma grew more withdrawn, sitting by the living room window, her hands clutching a knitted shawl, her gaze lost in the rainy streets. I wanted to ask if she was okay, but fear of what I'd learn of stirring conflict kept me silent. I hated that part of myself, the part that always looked away. At the bookstore, I buried myself in work, restocking shelves, helping kids find adventure books, planning a local author talk. The regulars, with their creased faces and warm stories, grounded me. Mr. Harold, a widower who read mysteries, said, "Nathan, you're young. Don't waste it on regrets." His words echoed Grandma Esther's soup, her quiet care when I was sick. I started spending more time with her, small moments that felt like anchors. One afternoon, I found her in the kitchen, stirring a pot of clam chowder, the air thick with salt and herbs. "Sit, Nathan," she said, ladling me a bowl. "Tell me about your books." I talked about a sci-fi novel I was reading, and she listened, her blue eyes bright, asking questions like she cared about every word. It was the first time in years I felt seen. But my mother's sharp voice cut through. "Esther, don't leave dishes out. We're not a diner." Grandma apologized, her hands trembling as she scrubbed a spoon. I wanted to snap at my mother, but my tongue stayed heavy. My father's hotel talk grew relentless. He'd pace the living room, phone in hand, promising investors big returns. I overheard him with my mother one night, his voice low. "Her savings account is just sitting there. Why's she hoarding it? She's old." My mother replied, "Keep at her, Samuel. She's weak. She'll give in." My heart sank. They'd taken her Portsmouth house, and now they wanted her last savings. Grandma Esther barely left her attic room, her steps slower, her face thinner. One day, I brought her a plate of sliced apples, finding her on her bed, clutching her wooden box. "For you, Grandma," I said. She smiled, taking my hand. "You're good, Nathan." Her words burned, not because I believed them, but because I hadn't earned them. I started noticing more, her coughs, her pauses to catch her breath, the way she'd stare at her grandfather's photo. I wanted to act, but didn't know how. One evening, I came home late, the bookstore's author event running long. Grandma sat alone in the dining room, papers spread before her, eyes red. "Grandma," I said, stepping closer. She startled, wiping her face, forcing a smile. "Nathan, you're back." I saw a savings account form, her signature shaky. "You signed it?" I asked, voice tight. She nodded, looking away. "Samuel says I don't need it. I'm old. What's the use?" I wanted to shout that they were stealing from her, but I froze, my cowardice a familiar weight. After she signed, my parents' masks fell. They treated her like a ghost. My mother bought designer scarves. A new truck gleamed in the driveway. Grandma ate alone upstairs, her dignity fraying. When she dropped a plate, my mother hissed, "Clumsy old woman." Grandma apologized, picking up pieces. I watched, heartbreaking, but stayed silent. The breaking point came on a stormy night, rain pounding the windows. I was in my room, reading, when my father's voice roared, "Mom, that money's for your care, for us." It was her emergency savings, for illness, her funeral. I crept to the hall, phone recording. Grandma sat on the couch, clutching her shawl. "Samuel, it's my last money, for when I'm sick, my burial," she said, voice firm but trembling. My father loomed over her. "Burial? You think we can't care for you? Give it or get out." My mother stood by, cold. "Don't complicate things, Esther." Tears fell as Grandma whispered, "I've given everything, the house, my savings." My father snatched her shawl, throwing it down. "Leave, then." She stood, trembling, and dragged her suitcase to the door, rain swallowing her steps. I ran after her, guilt and panic surging. I'd let her suffer too long. I found her at a bus stop, soaked, her suitcase beside her. "Grandma," I called, voice raw. She smiled faintly. "Go home, Nathan." I knelt, rain stinging. "I'm sorry. I won't let you go." I called a taxi and took her to the bookstore's back room, a temporary haven. My coworker, Clara, saw us and brought blankets and tea. "She needs a place tonight," I said. Clara nodded, no questions. "You're doing right, Nathan," she said. I stayed with Grandma, the rain a dull roar, feeling for the first time I was choosing the right path. The morning after the storm, I contacted the bookstore's owner, Ms. Ellis, a warm woman with a knack for problem-solving. I explained Grandma Esther's situation, my voice shaking. She arranged a spot at a nearby assisted living home, discounted for staff families. I moved Grandma there, a brick building with a garden of asters, its halls smelling of fresh bread. I rented a studio apartment nearby, a single bed, a small desk, a window framing pines. I left my parents' house without a word, taking only clothes and books. Grandma settled in, her smile returning. She played chess with a resident, Miss Agnes, who teased, "Nathan's your knight, Esther." Grandma laughed, her eyes bright. "He is." I had the video, my father's threats, my mother's coldness. Could bring justice, but I hesitated, fearing the fallout. One day, Grandma showed me her wooden box, filled with old papers. "Years ago, Samuel forged my signature for a loan," she said. "He sold land in Portsmouth for gambling debts. I stayed quiet to keep the family whole. I held contracts, receipts, a letter from my grandfather warning her." Anger surged, at my father, at myself for letting her carry this alone. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "I love my son, Nathan. I didn't want you torn. I promised to protect her." I took the papers to a lawyer, Mr. Hayes, recommended by Ms. Ellis. He reviewed them, nodding. "This is strong forgery, fraud. The video could clinch it." I played the footage, Grandma's tears, my father's rage. "Post it," Mr. Hayes said. "It'll force their hand." I uploaded it to social media. "This is how my family treated my grandmother. No one should suffer like this." Spread fast, thousands of shares, comments raging. My mother called, frantic. "Delete it, Nathan." I replied, "You hurt her." My father called. I ignored him. Grandma thrived, unaware, knitting with residents, sharing Portsmouth stories. She nudged me toward Clara, the librarian, arranging chance meetings. "She's kind, Nathan," she'd say. Clara and I grew close, sharing cider, then dreams. I asked her out, her smile lighting me up. Grandma weakened, her coughs frequent. She gave me her wedding ring. "For someone you love," she said. A week later, she passed under moonlight, peaceful. I buried her in Portsmouth beside my grandfather, under a hill of daisies, without telling my parents. I lingered at her old house, now owned by a young family. The garden was gone, but a breeze carried lavender. "I'll live well, Grandma," I whispered. Back in Concord, the lawsuit won. My father paid restitution, his reputation ruined. My mother's apology was empty. I cut contact. Clara and I married in the assisted living garden, Ms. Agnes cheering. Our son, Eli, named for my grandfather, has Grandma's eyes. At her grave, I laid asters, Clara and Eli beside me. "I'm living true," I said, feeling her smile in the breeze.